Hi, welcome. In today's sequence, we will be working on improving and increasing strength through the hips. The front hips, outer, internal rotators, external rotators, everything through the pelvis. So if you have a yoga block, keep it within reach. It is not required, but a really good way to enhance your postures and to really sense what is working or what needs to engage more. So let's just begin on the back. Starting in a constructive rest pose. Okay, allow the knees to bend, keeping your feet firmly planted, at least hip width apart. Option to have the knees touching, holding each other up. Rest one hand over the lower belly, the other over your chest. Soften your shoulders and elbows. The eyes could be open or closed. Bring some more stillness and quiet to the body, to the mind, arriving here on your mat. Can you sense the weight of your body anchoring you? Can you sense your breathing? This is also a tool to anchor yourself. You have your breath always. Just keep inhaling and exhaling through your nose, softly, steadily, quietly. Keep your breath moving in all directions beneath both of your hands. 2 more cycles. Open your eyes and enjoy a full body stretch. Arms back, feet forward. Lengthen through the body from fingertips to toes. Actively stretch. Roll your wrists around and your ankles clockwise, counterclockwise. Wiggle a bit intuitively. Then bend your knees towards your chest. Just gently give your legs a squeeze towards you. So we're flexing the hips here, creating a stretch through the lower back and outer hip area. You can rock side to side. And then start to draw circles with your knees, stirring them around. Just start in one direction, go a few times this way. Hands guide your knees. Okay, go the opposite way too. You can always increase the range of motion or widen the circle if your joints allow, or decrease the range of motion if you need less. Okay, now bring both legs to center, keeping knees towards your chest. Use your right hand to isolate right thigh and just stir your right knee around. Smaller, perhaps bigger circles. Do your best to keep everything else more stationary and still. You take your knee in the other direction too. And then guide right knee to center. Let's stir the left knee around. Seeing if you can really isolate that left thigh bone in the hip socket. Maybe pay attention more to see how each side is very similar or very different. Okay, explore both directions. All right, then step your left foot on the mat. Extend right leg up to the ceiling. Interlace fingers behind your right thigh. You just use your hands for some leverage to gradually pull your right thigh, your right leg towards you. And the leg does not need to be straight. You're creating tension through the stretch here in the back of your thigh, the hamstring. You dorsiflex your right ankle. Okay, just pulling the top of your foot and toes towards the shin. Then we'll take a few moments with our right ankle in plantar flexion. So like a dancer, try to point your foot, moving it away from the shin. Step right foot on your mat and send your left leg up, interlace fingers behind left thigh. You can bend the left knee as much as you need, guiding your leg towards you incrementally, mindfully. Let's actively dorsiflex left ankle, top of the foot towards the shin. Can you notice where you really feel the stretch when your ankle is in this position? Versus plantar flexion. Try to move the top of your left foot away from your shin. This could bring more of the focus of the stretch deeper into the belly of the muscle. Step your left foot on the mat. Keep your feet about hip width apart, parallel to each other. Arms straight down by your sides. We'll do a few easy bridge poses. Pressing down your feet to activate your legs, raise the pelvis. Try to lead with the front of your hips. They lengthen here, some hip extension. Hamstrings are strong, squeeze your glutes a little too. Pretend you're holding your block between your knees. In slow motion, lower the spine and pelvis down. Just looking up your hips and thighs. Again, raise the hips. Knees pointing forward. Try not to let them open out wider, pressing evenly through your feet. Try to lift your pelvis another millimeter. Breathing through your nose. Let's lower the hips with control. Take a pause. And then one more time, easy bridge. Pressing down feet, lifting your pelvis. Squeeze an imaginary block between your knees. You can always use an actual block. Then lower your hips smoothly down. Take a moment once your hips land on your mat. Separate your feet wider than the hips, maybe as wide as your mat. You can move arms away from you, making a capital T. Windshield wiper legs, right to left. So you create this gentle spiral through the body. Let the pelvis swivel. Maybe turn your head in the opposite direction of your knees. Okay, knees to your chest. Give your legs a squeeze. Give yourself a hug. With hands behind your thighs, rock forward and back. Do this a couple times and move into a tabletop position. So here we want to make our thighs and arms vertical, stacking hips over knees, shoulders over wrists. With weight in your hands, spread the fingers wide, cover space, and right away put more pressure into your base knuckles so we're not resting in the wrist. Okay, from here, simply rock forward and back, moving your torso, inviting some gentle motion, more motion into the joints. Especially the wrists, getting them prepared for weight bearing. You feel the shoulders move, hips and knees too. Another rock forward and back. And then come to center. All right, so extending right leg behind you. Keep pressing through the hands strongly so your upper body is very stable, low belly toned. Bend right knee. Now draw circles with your right knee behind you. So a little like what we did on our back, but now we have to use more of our strength to keep the body stable, not wobbly as you circle that right thigh. You go the other direction too. Extend right leg back and right knee lowers to tabletop. Other side when you're ready, left leg behind you. Simply bend your knee and draw circles. You're moving through your left hip socket. Can you isolate left thigh? Maybe make the circle bigger without sacrificing the more stillness and stability through the rest of your body. Keep breathing through your nose. Extend left leg back, tabletop. Okay, moving into cow. Lift your tailbone, lower the belly. For cat, round your spine. Here's my cat Taro. Again, go to cow, tailbone lifts. And cat, rounding your back. One more cycle, cow. Extending the spine lightly. For cat, you flex the spine. Come to a more neutral spine next. Okay, lower belly stays toned. Bring elbows to the mat. Okay, elbows are under your shoulders. Hopefully you can see me, okay? Now let's locate the shoulder blades. They're like pizza slices on your upper back. Can you move those pizza slices, the shoulder blades, away from each other? So they're protracting, creating this broadness in the upper back. With control, retract the shoulder blades in towards each other. So again, the scapula, the shoulder blades move apart, press through your arms. Then shoulder blades retract in. Keep the lower core intact. Once more, protract the shoulder blades apart. Pause here. This is a more stable position. Now step one foot back at a time for forearm plank. Yes, you have a line of energy from your head to your heels. Firm your thighs. Continuously pushing into arms. If you need a version with less load, just lower your knees behind your hips. Okay, one more breath, tailbone back. Now bring your knees down gently and your hips for Sphinx. Elbows stay under shoulders, lifting your chest. You can untuck the toes, lower body's on the mat. Okay, to lessen pressure on the mid-spine, I would try to hug front ribs inward. Okay, let's take another moment here in your back bend. You're kind of lengthening abdominals, which you were just engaging a lot. Lower your chest and reach your arms back. Arms straight by your sides, palms facing up. You will strengthen the back more. Start by just lifting your arms. Bringing shoulders into extension. Try to press your palms on the ceiling. Lower the arms down. And again, lifting arms. Okay, now we'll also lift the chest. So similar to a low cobra spine. Okay, feet and hips press into the ground. Lower with control. Continuously breathing. Again, raise your arms, your chest. Now legs and feet too. Okay, this is our locust pose. Point through toes, legs closer together. Another breath. It's like a crunch for your back body. Lower down. Planting hands outside the ribs. Okay, press into your hands, go to child's pose. Hips towards heels. The hips do not need to touch the heels, you might elevate them. Allow your head to rest. Keep arms extended forward actively. Can you crawl your fingertips forward another inch? Okay, tabletop is next. Okay, from tabletop, tuck toes under. Okay, protract shoulder blades. Root the base knuckles of your fingers. Okay, create strength right away using the ground, pressing into it. And float your knees a few inches off your mat. Okay, softly return your knees to the ground. Just gaze ahead of fingertips. Again, knees hover, arms long, press through hands and toes. Okay, softly lower your knees. One more time, we'll hover the knees. And then go to downward facing dog. Raise your hips. The hips up and back, hands are pushing down and forward. The hips are the highest point of this pyramid shape. You might need to move your hands and or feet wider side to side. Maybe lengthen your stance front to back. Okay, create a balanced, sustainable posture, a breathable posture. Take another full breath. Okay, now coming up high on your toes. Bend knees. Step or walk to the front of your mat. Your feet could be together or hip width. Take a halfway lift. Long through the spine, chest forward, knees might bend. Fold, hands and head down. Another halfway lift. Weight forward, heart forward, shoulders back. Fold. Now rise up to standing, pressing through your feet, reach arms overhead, and bring hands to your heart. Okay, lower the arms down. Okay, so let's just try some this simple movement with your arms to wake up arms, shoulders, and lats a little more before we do more weight-bearing postures. Take your arms above your head, okay, making fists. Good. So you can turn your palms so they face inward and yourself a bit more. Pretend you're doing like pull-ups or chin-ups here. So with resistance, think slow motion. Start to pull elbows down like you're pulling on a bar. Slowly pull the elbows down. Then they pass your waist. Then go back behind you. Keep arms close to your body. Okay, again, and reversing. Let's take the hands forward slowly, up to the sky. Can you lengthen arms? Shoulders could naturally shrug a bit. Same thing, slowly bend your elbows. Pulling them down by your side, behind you, kind of like chaturanga the arms. Then we'll reverse. Okay, if you just go slow with attention, you'll really strengthen things. Okay, again, let's bend the elbows. Slowly move them back, upper arms by your sides. Then reverse. Okay, once your hands are up, you could lower arms by your side body. Yes, take the shoulders around a couple times. Okay, setting up your mountain pose. Anchor the corners of your feet. As you push into the mat, firm thighs grow a little taller. Can you sense strength rebounding up? Okay, shoulders easy. Gaze soft ahead. On your next breath, circle your arms up. Folding forward, lead with your chest, hinge at the hips, bend your knees. Half lift, long back. Go to a high plank next. Earlier we did forearm plank, which is always an alternative. But for high plank, arms are straight, thighs firm. Try to pull your palms and toes towards each other. You could always lower the knees for less load. As you pull your palms and toes to each other, maintain this tension, this pull. Lean forward and lower yourself all the way down. Elbows raise your sides. Untuck the toes. Low cobra. Lift your chest, feet and hips press into the ground. Hands are light. Release. Just take another low cobra. Small back bend. Breathe here. Hover hands off your mat. Try to keep your hands hovering. Just move them back so they're under your elbows, still hovering, wrists in extension. Now place your hands on the mat. Stay here or go to high cobra, pushing hands down strongly. You could float the thighs for upward facing dog. Downward facing dog next. Tucking toes, raise your hips. And try to lengthen more. Hug front ribs in. your next breath, rise up on the toes. Bend your knees and step or walk to the top. Halfway lift. Fold. Come up to standing, press down to rise, arms overhead. And bring hands to your heart. Okay, we'll do another sun salute, reaching arms up. Grow taller. Now fold forward, maybe bending knees on the way. Half lift. High plank. Plant your palms, stepping back. Pull your palms and toes towards each other as you lean forward. Okay, option now to lower halfway. Okay, this is your push-up. Maybe you lower all the way. Then your upward facing dog follows, meeting in downward facing dog. Okay, completing your next breath. Encourage weight back to the legs. Really arrive in your pose. Send right leg back and up for three-legged dog. Right knee to your nose. Quiet step forward. Okay, let's stay on the ball of the left foot and just keep hands on the mat. This is like a runner's lunge. You could always tent fingertips or put blocks under your hands to raise the ground. Okay, just a few times, we're going to rock hips back, lengthening right leg to your own degree. Then return to your lunge forward, rebending right knee. Maybe it goes past your ankle if the ankle feels fine. Then again, hips back. Then lunge forward. Keep the whole right foot planted. One more time, hips back. Lunge forward and step left foot forward. Halfway lift. Take your time. Fold. And come up to standing, keeping abs a little braced to support your back. Hands to heart. Okay, arms up. We'll take that variation of sun salute. Folding forward, knees bend. Halfway lift. Plank pose. Option here to lean and look forward, lower through your push-up, controlling your descent. Then upward facing dog, shoulders do not shrug, and meet in downward facing dog. Okay, your pace. Okay, my cues and my pace are just a guideline, so you want to really find a rhythm that doesn't feel too rushed or forced. Okay, now sending left leg back. Left knee to your nose, try to give it a kiss, and step through with control. Setting up a runner's lunge, so hands could frame the left foot. You might raise them on blocks. And when you're ready, move the hips back, tack left hip back, and lunge forward. Keep the whole left foot planted. Again, hips back, lengthening left leg, and lunge. One more time, hips back. Okay, lunging forward, weight to left foot, right foot steps forward. Half lifts. Fold. Come up to standing. Let's rise smoothly. Then bring hands to your heart. Okay, rest arms at your sides. Okay, if your feet are together, have them hip width apart. Okay, and we're gonna just strengthen the calves and ankles a little more, as well as work on balance. Okay, the feet affect everything above them, which is the rest of the body, so good for hips. Let's lift heels. Try to do this slowly. Just get the heels as high as you can. They're gonna shift around a little bit. If they wanna roll out a lot, try to root the base of your big toes more. In slow motion, return your heels to the mat. Get slower is usually stronger. Again, heels rise. Lift from your lower half. Shoulders easy. Okay, very slowly, lower your heels. Last time, heels lift. Pausing at the top. Okay, with control, heels return to your mat. Okay, for awkward chair, you can bend your knees and make the heels heavy now. Hips back, arms forward in opposition. Reach past your fingertips. Spirit fingers ahead. Low belly slightly drawn in while keeping room for your breath. Sit deeper with every other breath. Another cycle. Okay, hands down, forward fold. Half lift. Okay, let's go to a plank. And from your plank, lower yourself all the way down. Untucking toes. Reach your arms back with palms facing up. So like earlier, we're going to lift everything, locust. Just changing it up a little bit. Keep your legs close together, maybe arms higher. Now press the tops of your feet onto the mat. Bend elbows and bring hands outside the ribs. You could stay here in what is essentially low cobra or go to upward facing dog. Okay, downward facing dog. Raise hips. Okay, we want to focus on strengthening the front and back of the body. Send your right leg back and up. Right knee to your nose. Stepping forward. Yes, let's stay on the ball of the left foot. Push through the entire right foot. Float your fingertips off the mat first. Okay, testing the stability of your base. Then come up to a high lunge. Okay, settling in. Okay, here you might feel the front of your left hip really lengthening. Make sure feet are wide enough side to side to balance. Okay, you're going to flip your right palm up and hold the left wrist. As you hold the left wrist, gently guide your upper body to the right. Okay, creating lateral flexion, more of a side bend. Opening around the rib cage, breathing into all the little muscles. Another cycle. Return to center, letting go of your wrist. Hands down, bring left knee down. Good. And then for half split, we're just gonna rock hips back, lengthening right leg. Okay, right leg does not need to be straight. Just frame your leg with your hands. Okay. You get 10 fingertips, you might want to raise hands on blocks. Okay, just take another moment here, chest forward. Stretching more of the back of your right leg. Then we'll try to strengthen our right hip flexors, the stuff on the front of your hip, okay, by thinking of squeezing the hip flexor to lift your right leg. Can you hover your heel off the ground? Lower the leg down. Okay, it might help to increase the space between your torso and right leg, so maybe use blocks. And again, lift your right leg. Lower it down gently. Try one more time to raise right leg. Softly lower. Lunge forward, planting right foot, rebending right knee. Tuck left toes under, lift left knee, and step left foot forward. Halfway lift. Fold, come up to standing, arms reach above your head, simply reset with hands at your heart. Okay, then again, arms circle up, grow taller with your arms, fold forward, hinging at the hips. Half lifts, plank pose. From a strong plank, again, lower yourself down all the way to your stomach. Elbows raise your sides. Arms back with palms facing up. Lift everything. Another locust to breathe here. Taking our little back crunch. And with legs closer, press the tops of your feet down. Plant hands outside your ribs. Stay or go to upward facing dog. And downward facing dog. Okay, left leg back and up, three-legged dog. Left knee towards your nose, stepping through. Stay on the ball of the right foot now. The whole left foot is planted. Float fingertips off your mat. Activate your legs. Let that strength rise through your midsection. Then chest up for high lunge. Arms overhead. Steady gaze forward. Okay, your lower half doesn't change. Flip left palm up, hold right wrist, and just guide your upper body to the left. A little side bending. Leave space in your, around your left rib cage, okay, as you especially open the right rib cage. Return to center. Take your time, letting go of your wrist, hands to the mat, and right knee to your mat as well. We're going to set up our half split. Lengthening left leg, but pretty much aligning right hip over right knee. Left leg might be straight, it's not required. Chest forward. Encourage space through the back. Okay, I-10 fingertips. You might have hands on blocks. Okay, bringing attention to your front left hip flexor, contracting, squeezing that stuff. Lift your left leg. If you can, or just think of lifting, lower it down. You might try to make more space between your torso and the leg to actually move it. Again, lift left heel, hover if you can. Softly lower. You try not to hold your breath. One more time, lifting left leg, breathe. Lower it down. That's your hip flexor working. Then lunge forward. Tuck right toes under, lift right knee. Right foot steps forward. Halfway lift. Okay, fold to low abs toned. Come up to standing. Root down the legs, arms circle above you, and bring hands to your heart. Okay, resting arms at your sides. Okay, take a few moments right here. Standing in mountain pose. Find some ease where you can. Use just enough effort to be tall and keep the curves of your spine. All right, let's shift more weight into the right foot. You can lift your left heel off the mat. Okay, you might have hands on hips to help you balance. Let's raise left knee. Okay, so like stork pose, we're on one leg. Keep it simple first, balancing right here. Okay, can you lift your left knee a little higher? Use the hip flexor again. Okay, tall and upright in the body. Okay, step your left foot back to a high lunge, and hands can stay on the hips. Okay, I like hands here just to feel the position of your pelvis. A little tip forward here is natural since you have one leg behind you. Okay, so now we're just going to be playing with transitions, and I'll add a little with each sequence. But from here, can you just shift weight into right foot and return to stork, lifting left knee, and step your left foot down. Okay, a pause. Now weight to left foot, raise right knee. Find your balance. Each side could be different. Breathing to remain adaptive and more responsive. Can you lift your right knee higher, okay, without using hands? Then step back to a high lunge. You try to align your feet on railroad tracks, so about hip width. side to side. Just a moment here in your lunge, giving the front of the right hip a chance to lengthen. Then put weight into left foot, stork, raise right knee in front of you again, and step right foot down. Okay, so adding on, playing with different widths of lunges. Be mindful of knees, of course, and the ankles. You can always skip any parts that don't serve you today. Weight to right foot, lift left knee. Maybe higher. High lunge, stepping left foot back. Okay, so start on railroad tracks. So your feet are about hip width, side to side. Okay, we're going to now hop left foot, the ball of the left foot, onto a tightrope with your right foot. So you hop your left foot a little to the right, so it's in line with your right leg. Okay, balance here. Okay, notice how your joints can feel just fine being in line. Now we're going to hop left foot a little more to the right, so it's off the tightrope and your legs are actually crossing a bit. Okay, naturally your pelvis can kind of open to the left. Good. All right, hop your left foot onto the tightrope again. Strong right hip. Let's hop left foot onto the railroad track. Take a pause and step left foot forward. Okay, feet in line, a little shake if you need, wiggle a bit. Okay, let's try the other side. Weight to left leg, raising right knee. Okay, step or try to lift right knee higher first. Then step it back, high lunge, landing on railroad tracks. Okay, so starting balancing here. Okay, can you lightly hop your right foot onto a tightrope? Okay, in line with left foot, behind left foot. Then hop your right foot a little more to the left, off the tightrope, so you somewhat cross your legs. Okay, notice what the pelvis does. A little turn is okay. Let's hop right foot onto the tightrope again. Yes. Then railroad tracks. Okay, strong left hip, step right foot forward. And take a pause, arms at your sides. Okay, mountain pose. Okay, so everything's in neutral. Feet and hips face forward. Give yourself another slow inhale, slow exhale. Okay, so typically with high lunges, we stand on the railroad tracks, but it's always good to just try out different widths to challenge your balance and also give yourself options, because we don't always move or walk on railroad tracks. Okay, so next, take your feet about as wide as your mat. Okay, and then you can turn your feet out to about 11 and 1 o'clock, perhaps 10 and 2, but probably not more. We'll, in slow motion, lower into a deep squat. So begin to bend your knees, and as you bend them, keep knees pointing the same way as your toes. You can pull them back actively using outer hips. Pull knees back, perhaps hands are at heart. Just bring your hips as low as you can. Okay, it doesn't have to be a very deep squat. It might be just half or a quarter down. Okay, with whatever depth or version of squat you're doing here, keep pulling your knees back. Use your back body. Lift your chest a millimeter. Yes. Okay, avoid resting your legs or knees into your arms. Without letting the knees fall in, you could add a bit more challenge by raising arms above you. Usually it's harder to lift arms overhead the deeper you flex your hips, because your pelvis wants to slide under you. It makes the arms heavier. So try this to really challenge the upper back and shoulders. Okay, don't let the knees fall still. Raise your hips a centimeter. Another breath. All right, hands down. Hips slowly up. Heel toe your feet together or hip width apart. Coming into a forward fold. A pause here. Halfway lifts. Okay, then a ball squat. Hands could go to the mat, bend your knees a lot. Hips could touch heels, heels are probably off the ground. Round your back, okay, if that feels okay on the low spine, bringing forehead towards knees. Okay, let's try a toe stand. And just one more balancey pose. Look forward, lift through the chest. Okay, try one or both hands to heart center. Okay, so tall torso, squeeze legs together. Okay, you might sense more muscles in the feet working, waking up. If you want to add a bit more strengthening, hover hips off your heels. Okay. So now, with or without hands on the mat, try to bring your knees forward and closer to the ground. Maybe they can touch. You could always have hands for support here. Then do the opposite, rocking back, trying to bring your heels towards the ground. So again, rocking knees forward and down, upper body acts as a counterweight, unless you have hands on the floor, and heels back and down. So just try this rocking motion, toe rocks. And try to move slowly, mindfully. You can skip any parts here that cause pain, of course. You don't want to put too much load on the joints if they're not prepared for it. Okay, another rock, with or without hands on the ground. And the next time you bring your heels to the mat, sit down on the mat. All right, legs in front of you. Okay, you give legs a little shake. Let's come into boat pose. Rebending knees, keep them close together, toes flex back, hands light behind thighs, option to keep them on the floor, or bring arms forward right away. So as you lift your chest, keep this sense of buoyancy, especially in the upper body, and start to raise feet. Okay, your shins could be parallel to the ground, but if you start to lose that buoyancy, that lift in your heart, try this with heels just an inch or two off the ground. Okay, choose your arms. Okay, good pose for the hip flexors, inner thighs, deeper core. Another breath. Okay, lower the feet softly and separate them hip width apart. Hands a bit behind you. Let's try reverse tabletop, pressing through the hands and feet. Lift the pelvis. Okay, so kind of like bridge pose here with your lower body. Okay, strong glutes. I look forward, you might look at the ceiling, avoid dropping your head. Okay, very controlled here as you lower your hips. Okay, now keep your feet wide apart. They could be as wide as the mat now. Lean back on the hands and move your knees side to side. Okay, revisiting that windshield wiper action we did near the beginning of class. Okay, hips swivel. Okay, so I'll try to mirror you now. Next time your knees go to the right, keep them there. So your knees fall to the right. Allow the hips and torso to turn to the right as well. Try to set up a 90-90 leg position. It's called this because you're making a 90-degree angle at both knees. Okay, can you align right knee in front of right hip, left knee to the left of left hip? If this is hard to sustain, hips on the ground, you can always raise the hips and use a block. Just place the block under you. Okay. So just come into your 90-90 position. Holding here, you might sense this kind of weird internal stretch in your left hip. Soon we'll stretch the outer right hip a bit more. so you can stay tall, of course, stay where you are, or like half pigeon, without changing the shape of your legs, if possible, just lower your chest. Think forward and down. You have hands and arms to support you. Mindful as you stretch. It shouldn't be very straining. Your breath should be able to be smooth and soothing through your nose. We'll just stay here for a few more breaths. Ideally, you want to hold stretches for much longer, at least a minute, to make longer lasting adaptive changes. If you lowered your chest, come back up, press into the hands. To get to the other side, you can lean back on your hands a little behind you. Okay. Turn your, or point your knees up to the sky to go through center. Stay in center. Can you pull your knees farther from each other? Outer hips work here. Then let your knees swivel and fall to the left. Your left. Okay, and you should pretty much be ready for the other side, but take time to adjust and acquaint yourself with the position. Okay, 90 degrees at your knees, left knee in front of left hip, right knee to the right of your right hip. Okay, you can always stay elevated on a block. Start tall, maybe stay here. Okay, once you've checked in, you could start to hinge forward more at your your left hip. Okay, folding over that left leg. Okay, you don't have to look like me. Okay, you could do less. Maybe do more. It's all about exploring, easing into stuff so you know what's a good sustainable posture. Okay, 2 more breaths. And start to lift up, sitting tall. All right. So we'll try that same transition to center as a few moments ago, leaning back on the hands. Okay, turn your chest to the right so your knees point up to the ceiling. Try to pull your knees farther from each other. And then we're going to bring your right foot in closer to your groin area, your hips, and then bring your left foot to meet your right. Okay, so getting ready for a cobbler's pose. You can hold ankles or feet. Okay, this diamond shape in your legs might be very skinny and narrow or wider and more open. Okay, sit as tall as you can, and then send your chest forward. You might focus on maintaining a longer back. Okay, if your lower spine feels okay, you could allow some more rounding, just explore. And lift up, sit tall, hands to outer knees, bring your legs together. Okay, so make sure you have your block by your side and lower onto your back. Okay, once you're reclined, we'll try now some internal rotation, exploring the little bit of internal rotation that we all have and need, okay, to balance out all of the external rotation that we usually focus on in yoga especially. So you're going to take your block and maybe at the skinniest width, you can always rotate it. Place your block between your knees and just keep your knees roughly over your hips and bend them about 90 degrees. Holding your block first. Okay, as you squeeze into midline, you might already feel stuff working in your inner thighs and your lower core. Okay. Now, this next visualization is really just to help you do the action, the internal rotation. Pretend there are 2 threads connected to your outer feet. Okay, you can hold those threads with your hands, just imagine, and then gently pull those threads out away from center so your feet move away from each other while you squeeze your block gently. Okay, now guide your feet back to midline. Again, you can pull on those imaginary threads, take your feet away from center. Okay, I'll turn so you can see, and then bring your feet in towards each other. Okay, again, option to use hands or not. Pull your feet apart. Okay, hugging your block. Bring your feet back to center. And then again, open the space between your feet. This rotation's from high up in your thigh, in the hip socket. And then come back in. Just 2 more times. Strong internal rotation as you move feet away from each other. So inner thighs rotate inward. Then come back in. Last time. Pulling feet apart. Hold, breathe, squeeze your block. A little shaking is strength. 1 more cycle. Back to center. Set your block aside and step your feet on the ground. Resting here. Okay, hopefully that helps you, bring awareness and more strength to some new things you might not have known that you have. Okay, internal rotation is really good for helping you balance out your movement and even just simply walking. Okay, from here, just hug knees to your chest, give your legs a squeeze. Okay, interlace fingers over your right shin, extend left leg forward for wind removing pose. Pulling right knee a little closer to you, flexing the hip. For a twist, you can move right arm to your right on the ground comfortably. Left hand lightly guides your right knee to the left. So just an easy rotation. Your right knee is probably floating off the ground. Option to look to the right. Untwist, hug right knee towards you again, and your left knee as well. Okay, interlace fingers over your left shin. Right leg forward for wind removing pose. Left arm to your left. Setting up your twist. When you're ready, gently guide your left knee across to the right. You could stack hips. Okay, avoid forcing your left knee farther down than it wants to go. Maybe you look left. Untwist. Pull left knee in, right knee as well. Happy baby. You can just choose your grip. It might be outer feet, inner heels, or shins, maybe ankles. Express your happiest baby intuitively, moving, or take some time in stillness. And from here, if you decide, you could choose your final resting posture. For Shavasana, perhaps everything releases to the ground. You can always use props to raise the floor. Maybe you close or cover your eyes. You might elevate your feet. Try to give yourself at least a couple of minutes to rebalance and reset. Honor all of your hard work by being as effortless as you can. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that hips feel happier and stronger. Keep them moving in different ways, and I'll see you next time.